There are moments in a person's life when reality feels as though it is leaning closer, narrowing the distance between what is seen and what has always been silently waiting. At first, these moments drift in gently, almost casually. The same sequence of numbers glowing on the clock at impossible intervals, a phrase whispered by a stranger that repeats a thought you had only minutes before, a dream that materializes into an event, or a strange deja vu that clings to your skin like the afterglow of something you lived long ago, but cannot place within the timeline of your current existence. You brush these things aside in the beginning, because that is what you were trained to do. You were taught that coincidence is merely randomness wearing convincing mask, that the world is too large and too indifferent to arrange itself meaningfully around a single person's unfolding story. Yet something in you refuses to dismiss these moments entirely. They return. They intensify, they echo, and slowly, a suspicion awakens in you. Perhaps the world is not so indifferent after all. The sensation is difficult to articulate because it does not arise from logic. It arises from recognition. It feels like an inner knowing resurfacing, as if your consciousness is adjusting to a deeper frequency long broadcast from somewhere both familiar and unreachable. There is a subtle shift in your awareness, a widening of the edges of perception, a sense that the events around you are no longer isolated fragments, but threads of a tapestry that has been woven with extraordinary precision. When you begin noticing patterns that seem too deliberate to ignore, you wonder whether these signs are messages from destiny, or reminders that destiny has always been walking beside you, waiting for you to finally walk at its pace. Destiny is a word often spoken with either reverence or dismissal. Some treat it as a sacred force guiding their trajectory, while others reject it as superstition. Yet the truth may lie in a quieter, more intimate space. Destiny is not a pre-written script dictating your every move. It is a gravitational pull, a convergence of your deepest potential with the path that arises when you stop resisting who you are meant to become. It is less a command in the universe and more an invitation, extended softly but persistently, through signs that appear at the exact moments you are least expecting but most in need of them. These signs are not random. They are the language of alignment. If you listen closely, you will notice that signs rarely shout. They whisper. They surface in the liminal spaces where intuition is louder than thought. They emerge in the pauses between dramatic events, in the quiet after a heartbreak, in the stillness that follows a choice you knew was necessary but terrifying. Signs appear most clearly when your inner world is rearranging itself, when something in you is shifting into readiness. People often ask why signs seem to multiply during periods of transition, loss, or uncertainty, and the answer is both simple and profound. When the old identity cracks, light finally has room to enter. Destiny requires visibility, and visibility often comes only after things fall apart. There is a strange yet beautiful intelligence woven into your life, as if something is synchronizing with your intentions the moment you align with an inner truth you once suppressed. The world becomes reflective. It mirrors your hidden desires, your buried fears, your unanswered questions. What you once dismissed as happenstance begins to feel like choreography. This sensation may unsettle you, because it destabilizes the illusion that reality behaves independently of your consciousness. Yet it also awakens a sense of profound companionship, an awareness that you are not wandering aimlessly inside a silent universe, but are instead engaged in a quiet dialogue with something vast, ancient, and deeply invested in your unfolding. If you think back to the times you felt completely lost, you may remember that signs often appeared right then. The song that played at the moment your resolve was breaking. The unexpected message that arrived seconds after you whisper a question into the emptiness. The stranger who said something that somehow felt like it was meant solely for you. These moments do not create your destiny. They reveal it. They point toward the alignment between who you are and who you are becoming, like footprints in freshly fallen snow guiding you toward a path you didn't realize you were already walking. As these signs accumulate, something inside you begins to awaken from a long dormancy. You start noticing the interconnectedness of events, the uncanny timing of certain encounters, the recurring symbols that seem to orbit your awareness. This awakening is a first step toward understanding that destiny is not a faraway promise. It is a presence catching up to you. It is the moment you stop outrunning the truth of yourself. The signs do not appear because the universe suddenly decides to intervene. They appear because you have entered a phase of your life where you can finally perceive them. Destiny has always been whispering, but now your inner world has grown quiet enough to hear. There is a tenderness in this discovery. You may feel as though you're being guided, watched over, or subtly nudged in a direction you did not plan, yet somehow always belonged to. The sensation is not one of control, but of alignment, as if life is gently rearranging itself to meet you halfway. What once felt like randomness now feels like orchestration. What once felt like confusion now feels like preparation. And what once felt like a series of unrelated events now feels like destiny stepping into the light. When you keep seeing signs, it is rarely a coincidence. It is a kind of spiritual synchronicity that signals a convergence in your awareness, your readiness, and your deepest purpose. It is life's way of telling you that you are approaching a threshold where an older version of you dissolves and a more authentic version begins to emerge. The signs are not just markers along the path. They are the path. They are the summons toward becoming who you were always meant to be. To understand why the signs around you have intensified, you must look beyond the surface of coincidence and into the hidden architecture of experience that has always shaped the movement of your life. Signs are not merely symbols placed at random intervals. They are expressions of an underlying language that the universe uses to speak when ordinary words cannot reach you. The most essential truth is that signs do not appear because the world decides to rearrange itself in your favor. They appear because something within you has shifted enough to perceive the patterns that were always there. This shift is not sudden, nor is it accidental. It unfolds the way dawn quietly overtakes night, not through force, but through inevitability. At the heart of these signs lies the principle of alignment. Alignment is not about perfection or certainty. It is about resonance. It occurs when your internal state begins to vibrate at the same frequency as the path that is meant for you. When your thoughts, desires, fears, and intentions subtly synchronize, the world appears to respond in ways that feel almost uncanny. This alignment is why signs often appear after a moment of upheaval or transformation. A heartbreak, a loss, a sudden change, an unexpected revelation. These experiences dismantle the structures that once shielded you from deeper truths. When those structures fall, your perception expands. What you once ignored becomes visible. What you once doubted becomes undeniable. The alignment between your inner world and your outer path becomes so strong that signs seem to materialize everywhere. Another theme woven into these signs is the idea of recognition. Destiny is rarely a stranger. It feels more like remembering than discovering. It is as if you are reacquainting yourself with a path you once knew but forgot. When signs appear repeatedly, they carry the gentle yet persistent tone of memory resurfacing. They remind you of desires you buried, talents you abandoned, dreams you postponed, or truths you fear to speak aloud. Recognition gives rise to the strange sensation that the future is not arriving for the first time, but re-entering your awareness from a place you cannot name. This is why so many people describe signs as feeling familiar, even when they cannot logically explain why. Your destiny is not new, it is returning. There is also the theme of coherence, a sense that the fragments of your life are beginning to make sense in ways they previously did not. Coherence is a quiet realization that events that once appeared disconnected now reveal themselves as chapters in a single story. A conversation from years ago suddenly aligns with a choice you must make today. An unexplained attraction to a particular symbol or idea finds its relevance in the present moment. A coincidence from childhood finally reveals its meaning as an adult. Coherence does not create your path. It illuminates it. It reveals the invisible threads connecting your experiences, showing that your life has never been random, only misunderstood. When coherence emerges, signs become more than symbols. They become confirmations. They affirm that you are reading your life correctly. Equally important is the theme of awakening. Signs often mark thresholds, moments in which you transition from one version of yourself to another. Awakening is not a dramatic explosion of insight. It is a gradual shedding of illusions. It is the moment you realize that you have been living in a narrow corridor of perception and that the walls have quietly dissolved. Awakening allows you to see beyond your habitual fears and self-imposed limitations, revealing choices and possibilities that were always present but previously inaccessible. When you awaken, the world becomes more responsive, more alive, and more engaged with your inner landscape. This heightened sensitivity makes signs not only more visible, but more meaningful. They become a dialogue between your expanding awareness and the deeper intelligence of life itself. Another core concept is convergence, the idea that your inner transformation and outer circumstances begin to meet at a single point. Convergence is what happens when your readiness aligns with opportunity. It is the moment when destiny accelerates, moving toward you in momentum that feels almost inevitable. You may notice that people, ideas, and events begin appearing in rapid succession, as if life is orchestrating a sequence of encounters designed specifically to push you forward. Convergence is often accompanied by an intensification of signs because the universe is not preparing you for something abstract or distant. It is preparing you for something imminent. It is the sense that the path ahead is no longer theoretical. It is approaching. Embedded within all this is the notion of inner dialogue. Signs are not external commands. They are reflections of your inner landscape. They reveal the conversations you are having with yourself. Conversations about hopes you are afraid to pursue, wounds you have yet to confront, truths you are finally ready to acknowledge. When you repeatedly see signs connected to a specific idea or choice, it is often because your subconscious has begun to speak louder than your doubts. Signs bring the subconscious into the light, making it impossible to continue ignoring what you already know. They are mirrors held up to your inner truth. Lastly, there is the theme of inevitability. This does not mean that your life is predetermined or that your choices hold no power. Instead, inevitability speaks to the gravitational pull of authenticity. There is a version of you that is truer, wiser, and more aligned than the one you have inhabited up to now. This version of you is not an invention. It is an arrival. When signs begin to appear repeatedly and intensely, it is often because the gap between who you are and who you are meant to become is narrowed. You are being called to step into the life that matches the truth you can no longer deny. The signs are not forcing you. They are inviting you. They are the echo of your destiny, finally reaching your conscious awareness. These themes, alignment, recognition, coherence, awakening, convergence, inner dialogue, and inevitability, form the unseen architecture behind why signs appear when they do. They are the deeper truths beneath the surface of coincidence, reminding you that destiny is not a distant force, but a living presence. The signs you keep encountering are not merely symbols. They are the fingerprints of your unfolding purpose. To understand the deeper meaning behind why signs appear just when you are on the edge of transformation, it helps to journey into the realm of symbolic narratives, those intimate, timeless stories that echo through myth, dream, and intuition. These narratives are not meant to replace logic, but to reveal the layers of experience that logic alone cannot touch. They function like lanterns held up in the corridors of the psyche, illuminating the deeper structures of destiny and mysterious choreography that guides the movement of your life. One of the oldest narratives echoed across cultures is the story of the Wayfinder, the individual who feels an inner call long before the outer world offers any clear direction. The Wayfinder begins in confusion, surrounded by signs they don't yet know how to read. A falling feather, a repeated phrase, an inexplicable pull toward a distant place, an encounter that feels like it was arranged behind the scenes. These experiences accumulate like breadcrumbs scattered across the forest floor. At first, the Wayfinder doubts these breadcrumbs. They question their meaning, their timing, their validity. But eventually something shifts, not the signs themselves, but their relationship with the signs. The Wayfinder stops demanding explanations and starts following a quiet tug in their chest. The deeper truth this narrative reveals is that signs become meaningful only when one becomes ready to move. They are less about giving direction and more about awakening trust. Another symbolic narrative is that of the mirror path. In this story, every sign appears as a reflection of the hero's hidden inner landscape. If the hero keeps encountering symbols urging transformation, phoenixes in dreams, repeated mentions of rebirth, sudden fascination with beginnings, it is not because the world demands change, but because the hero has reached an inner threshold where change is inevitable. The mirror path teaches that signs do not instruct, they reveal. They show the hero who they have already become beneath the layers of fear and hesitation. The reason signs often feel eerily personal is because they are reflections of the subconscious rising into consciousness. The deeper the reflection, the stronger the sign. There is also the narrative of the threshold guardian, a motif that appears whenever someone is about to cross into a higher stage of their life. The guardian is not an enemy but a catalyst. It may appear as repeated obstacles, difficult decisions, or symbolic tests that force the hero to clarify their intention. Perhaps you keep encountering imagery of doors, keys, gates, or thresholds at the exact time you're contemplating a major life change. These recurring symbols do not represent restriction, they represent readiness. The threshold guardian appears because the hero is no longer meant to remain where they are. The signs gather around them like sentinels, reminding them that destiny requires courage. The deeper symbolism here is that every significant step in life is preceded by a moment in which the old self resists and the new self insists. Another rich narrative is the story of the invisible thread, a concept found in mythology, mysticism, and even modern psychology. This thread connects individuals across time and space in ways they cannot fully perceive. According to the story, whenever two paths are meant to converge, signs begin to appear, pulling the individuals closer through synchronicities, recurring thoughts, or meaningful encounters. You may experience this as sudden reminders of someone you haven't spoken to in years, only for them to contact you unexpectedly. Or you may feel drawn toward a place you've never visited, only to discover that something essential awaits you there. The invisible thread reminds us that destiny is relational. It is not only about who you become, but also about who you are meant to meet, support, awaken, or be awakened by. A more internal symbolic narrative is that of the inner lighthouse. In this story, each person carries within them a beacon that grows brighter the closer they come to their authentic path. When someone strays from that path, whether out of fear, obligation, or confusion, the beacon dims and signs become faint or sporadic. But when they begin moving toward their truth, the beacon brightens and signs flood their awareness with increasing clarity. The lighthouse does not generate the signs. It illuminates them. This narrative reveals a profound idea that destiny does not chase you. Your clarity reveals destiny. Signs become more frequent not because the universe suddenly intensifies its communication, but because your inner light has grown strong enough to perceive what was always there. There is also the narrative of the becoming shadow. Here, the signs appear as distant silhouettes of who you are growing into. These signs feel like glimpses of a future self, moments when you sense qualities, strengths, or possibilities that do not yet fully belong to you, but feel undeniably familiar. You may see a character in a book, a stranger on the street, or an image online that resonates with a version of yourself you cannot fully articulate. This is a becoming shadow making itself known. It is your future self projecting signals backward through time, urging you forward. In this symbolic narrative, signs are not messages from an external universe, but from your own becoming. Another profound symbolic story is the narrative of the returning echo. In this tale, signs manifest as repetitions, patterns, numbers, symbols, or events that circle back to you again and again, as though the universe is repeating a lesson, a reminder, or a warning. These echoes appear because the hero has reached a point where ignoring the message is no longer possible. The same imagery may appear in dreams. The same advice may come from different people. The same phrase may find you repeatedly. The returning echo symbolizes the persistence of truth. Destiny cannot force you to act, but it can echo until you listen. Finally, there's a narrative of the hidden cartographer, the unseen force drawing a map beneath your feet. In this story, the cartographer is not an external deity, but an inner intelligence that understands your path long before you consciously do. The hidden cartographer reveals certain sections of the map only when you are ready. Signs in this narrative are not instructions. They are revelations of the territory ahead. When you see signs that point toward a particular direction in life, it is because that part of the map has finally been illuminated. You are being shown the landscape of your next becoming. Each of these symbolic narratives reveals a deeper truth about signs. They are alive. They are dynamic, responsive, and intimately tied to your inner evolution. They do not exist outside of you. They arise through you. They are not arbitrary decorations scattered across the world, but meaningful mirrors reflecting the movement of destiny as it catches up to you. When these symbolic narratives awaken within your awareness, the signs around you stop feeling like curiosities and begin to feel like conversations. And once you realize that you are in a conversation with destiny, you cannot help but listen more closely. As profound as symbolic narratives and cosmic metaphors may be, their power is incomplete unless they can be carried into the terrain of everyday life. Signs do not arrive solely to enchant the imagination. They arrive to alter behavior, expand perception, and redirect the trajectory of your lived experience. The mysterious becomes meaningful only when it ripples into practical. Destiny is not an abstract force hovering above your circumstances. It is something that materializes through every choice, hesitation, insight, and response you embody in the physical world. When signs begin to multiply, they are not asking you to escape your life, but to inhabit it more fully, more consciously, and more courageously. One of the most immediate practical integrations lies in learning to pause when a sign appears, not to freeze or overanalyze, but to create a small moment of awareness, a breath that makes room for intuition to speak. This pause is not about decoding a secret message, but about acknowledging that something in your environment is resonating with something inside you. In that pause, the mind quiets enough for you to distinguish between impulse and insight, between fear disguised as logic and clarity disguised as coincidence. Over time, this pause becomes a habit, and a habit becomes a way of tuning your attention to the subtle movements of your own inner compass. Signs also ask you to develop a more intimate relationship with your emotional responses. We often treat emotions as background noise, as atmospheric conditions that come and go without meaning. Yet emotions are often the first instruments to vibrate when a sign is significant. If a certain symbol stirs an inexplicable sense of familiarity or urgency, it may not be because the symbol itself holds power, but because it activates something dormant within you. Allowing yourself to actually feel those emotional ripples, rather than dismissing them, turns the internal world into a guide rather than a distraction. Ignoring your emotional responses is like muting half the language through which destiny communicates. Listening to them is a form of alignment. Another practical implication lies in decision-making. Signs often appear around major choices, not to remove your responsibility, but to illuminate what you already know deep down. They are not shortcuts that guarantee an outcome. They are clarifications of direction. When you face a crossroads, whether in relationships, career, identity, or calling, the presence of repeated signs suggests that your deeper self has already chosen a path, even if your conscious mind hesitates. The practical integration is not blind obedience, but courageous reflection. You begin to ask different questions, not what is the safest choice, but which choice feels like the one my future self is already walking toward, not what will others approve of, but which path makes me feel more awake. Signs do not dictate decisions. They reveal which decisions feel like home. Synchronicity also affects your relationships in practical ways. When certain people keep appearing in your thoughts, in your dreams, in unexpected conversations, or in shared symbols scattered across your days, it may be because your stories are intertwined in ways you cannot yet perceive. Some connections arrive to awaken you, others to challenge you, others to heal you or to be healed by you. Signs help you distinguish between relationships of habit and relationships of meaning. They highlight the people who are aligned with your growth, those whose presence expands your inner clarity rather than diminishes it. Integrating this insight can radically shift how you invest your time and emotional energy. Destiny often moves through people, and signs show you which people carry threads of your future. These signs also influence how you relate to time. When you begin noticing the patterns woven through your experiences, time no longer feels linear. It feels cyclical, layered, filled with echoes. You start to sense that the future is not merely something you approach. It is something that approaches you. This shift creates a subtle but profound real-world emphasis on readiness rather than control. Instead of forcing outcomes or anxiously trying to orchestrate every detail, you begin preparing yourself internally, allowing events to meet you halfway. You focus less on manipulating circumstances and more on becoming the kind of person who naturally attracts the circumstances meant for them. Practical integration also requires discernment. Not every coincidence is a sign, and not every sign demands action. The key distinction lies in resonance. True signs create a sense of expansion, as though they widen your awareness and sharpen your understanding. They carry a quiet gravity, a gentle insistence that persists even after your logical mind tries to dismiss them. Integrating this discernment helps you avoid the extremes of over-spiritualizing or under-spiritualizing your life. Instead, you learn to inhabit middle space where intuition and rationality collaborate rather than compete. The real-world implication is a balanced perspective that honors inner knowing without abandoning grounded judgment. As signs accumulate, they influence your behavior in subtle but powerful ways. You may begin noticing that certain habits no longer feel compatible with who you are becoming. Patterns you once tolerated now feel heavy. Environments you once endured now feel misaligned. What used to feel like normal life now feels like a costume that no longer fits. This discomfort is not a failure. It is a shedding of an old self. The real-world implication is that signs often signal the beginning of an identity shift, urging you toward environments and habits that resonate with your emerging purpose. Finally, the presence of signs invites you to engage with life in a more open, curious, and receptive manner. You stop chasing certainty and begin cultivating trust. Trust does not mean passivity. It means participating in the unfolding of your path without needing to control every twist and turn. It means allowing space for the unseen forces within and around you to contribute to your journey. This trust transforms your relationship with fear. Instead of perceiving uncertainty as a threat, you begin to see it as a frontier where destiny reveals itself. The practical implication of this shift is profound. You move through life with a steadier heart, a clearer mind, and a more grounded sense of purpose. In the end, integrating signs into your daily existence is not about becoming mystical or adopting new beliefs. It is about deepening your awareness of the connections already present, the patterns already forming, the truths already whispering beneath the noise of routine. It is about living with the understanding that your destiny is not something distant or abstract, but something alive, attentive, and always approaching. And the signs you see are simply the footsteps it leaves as it draws near. You arrive now at the final arc of this long unfolding, the place where all threads converge, where all whispers turn into clarity, where every sign you have followed or ignored gathers into a single realization. The signs were never random, and neither were you. Everything you have encountered, the symbols, the dreams, the repetitions, the strange alignments, the unmistakable synchronicities, forms a quiet architecture beneath your life, a design that becomes visible only when your consciousness rises to meet it. Your destiny has not descended into your world like some outside force. It has risen from within you, untangling its way through your fears, emerging through your intuition, and revealing itself in the language of signs only when you became willing to see. There comes a moment in every life when you stop running from yourself, not because fear has vanished or doubt has dissolved, but because the call toward your own becoming grows louder than all the distractions that once drowned it out. Signs gather precisely at this moment, not as commands, but as confirmations. Each of them reflects a truth that was already forming inside you, a truth your inner world recognized long before your outer world caught up. When destiny begins closing the distance, the world around you rearranges in subtle ways that feel both mysterious and familiar. Like a melody you somehow know the lyrics to even though you've never heard the song before. The essence of seeing signs is not about divining the future. It is about recognizing the present. It is about noticing that something in you has awakened just enough to perceive the interconnectedness of your experiences. When you see a sign, truly see it, you are not witnessing an omen but an alignment. You are witnessing your inner self stepping into direct conversation with your outer path. You are witnessing the dissolution of the boundary between desire and manifestation, between intention and expression, between who you are and who you are becoming. There's a quiet courage required here. Destiny does not seek passive acceptance. It seeks participation. It asks you to listen, not with your ears, but with your entire being. It asks you to walk, not perfectly, but willingly. It asks you to trust, not blindly, but deeply. Trust that the signs you encounter are not tricks of randomness, but translations of your own unfolding. Trust that the path you feel drawn toward is not a fantasy, but a memory of your most authentic trajectory. Trust that the version of you who stands on the other side of fear, the one who feels more coherent, more aligned, more alive, is not imaginary but inevitable. Transformation becomes possible the moment you decide that the signs are worthy of your attention. Not worship, not an obsession. Attention. When you pay attention, your choices become less reactive and more intentional. You begin gravitating toward the environments, relationships, and opportunities that expand your awareness rather than restrict it. You start disentangling yourself from patterns that once felt permanent. You begin to walk with a subtle but unmistakable sense of inner companionship, as if something in the unseen world has taken your hand. There's a shift that happens the moment you realize destiny is not something you chase, but something you allow. When you stop forcing outcomes, you create space for alignment. When you stop silencing your intuition, you create space for truth. When you stop shrinking your identity to fit your past, you create space for your future. These shifts are not dramatic. They are gentle, internal recalibrations that slowly reshape the outer trajectory of your life. You start saying yes to things that feel aligned, even when they feel uncertain. You start saying no to things that drain you, even when they feel familiar. You begin moving with an inner clarity that cannot be explained logically, but feels unmistakably real. This is the moment where the true transformational call arises. The signs you have seen do not simply mark the approach of your destiny. They signal your readiness. You are standing on the threshold of becoming, with every sign acting as a lantern illuminating the next step. You may feel the trembling that accompanies every meaningful transition, the quiet mixture of excitement and fear that emerges whenever life invites you to step into a larger version of yourself. This trembling is not a warning. It is an initiation. It is the body recognizing the magnitude of what the soul has already chosen. What lies ahead is not a fixed future, but a living one. Destiny is not a single event, but a relationship, a continuous unfolding between your intention and the world's response. The more you listen, the clearer the signs become. The more you move, the more the path reveals itself. The more you trust, the more the universe entrusts you with experiences that shape you into the person you are capable of becoming. You are not walking into the unknown alone. You are walking with the guidance of every symbol that has ever crossed your path, every intuition that ever stirred your heart, every moment of resonance that ever tugged at your awareness. Your destiny is finally catching up to you not because it was far away, but because you have slowed down enough to let it reach you. You are stepping into a chapter of your life where clarity outruns confusion, where alignment outweighs fear, where meaning emerges from the very fabric of your experience. The signs that surround you are not the beginning or the end. They are the bridge. They are the reminders. They are the invitations. The transformation now rests in your hands. You're not being asked to decode every sign or interpret every symbol. You are being asked to live with them, to let them guide your attention, to let them soften your resistance, to let them deepen your trust. You are being invited to walk forward with a quiet knowing that your life is not happening at random. It is happening in rhythm. And the rhythm has finally reached a tempo you can hear. This is your moment to move, to listen, to align, to become. The signs have led you here not so you can admire them, but so you can take the next step with the understanding that the universe is not only observing your journey, it is participating in it. Your destiny is not waiting somewhere in the distance. It is standing right beside you,